recording issue, I guess. And so we're focused on the request and the funding for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. However, neighborhood councils also are interested in their annual allocation, which is currently $25,000. 20 years ago, it was $50,000. But that allocation comes through the office of the city clerk. It's part of the city clerk's portion of the budget. So I just want to let everyone know that, that there may be reference made to that, but it's not part of the department's actual budget. And so this session is being recorded. It will be posted on our website. Again, that's budgetadvocates.org. And there will be an opportunity for your pre-submitted questions when you registered to be answered at the end of the presentation, as well as questions that come up during the presentation in the Q&A that will be monitored by department staff, and we'll work in answer as many as we can. And we have asked that any unanswered questions that we follow up afterwards and get those out to all of you registered. So again, thank you all for attending. It's now my pleasure to introduce the General Manager of the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, Carmen Chang. Thank you so much, Carmen, for you and your leadership and for being here this evening.
All right. Thank you so much, Jay and Glenn. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Hope folks got some time to rest and enjoy time with loved ones. So just thrilled to be working in partnership with the Budget Advocates and have the opportunity to present our departmental budget. I really do want to shout out the Budget Advocates. You all really do so much because it's not only our department that submits our budget, it's all 44 departments across the city. And so as many of you might know, many of city staff spend the majority of the month of November putting together the budget, working with the mayor's office or the CAO's office and submitting, and we just submitted it November 21st. So just wanted to, this is just the first step in the process. And we do this every year right now in how we focus on the budget and talk about our priorities. We are hopeful that there may be some changes for the better in the future. We shall see. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Armando Ruiz, who is our Managing Director of Administrative Services, to share a little bit about EmpowerLA's budget submission for the 26-27 fiscal year. And I'll turn it over to you, Armando.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Give me 1 second while I share the screen. All right. Here. All right. Good evening, everyone. It is a privilege to be with you tonight for our fiscal year 2026-2027 EmpowerLA Budget Town Hall. This year marks a significant milestone. Over 25 years since the creation of the neighborhood council systems, and for a quarter of a century, this system has been the heartbeat of civic engagement in Los Angeles, giving a voice to our diverse communities. As we look back on this legacy, we must also look forward to what's required to sustain and strengthen this vital institution for the next 25 years. Tonight isn't just about spreadsheets and line items. It's about resources, people, and strategic investments necessary to support grassroots democracy in our city. So again, my name is Armando Ruiz. I'm the Managing Director of Administrative Services. My role is to ensure that our department has the operational backbone to serve you effectively. I'm here today to walk you through our budget proposal with full transparency, outlining our challenges, our priorities, and our unwavering commitment to you. This budget proposal is anchored in our department's core mission to inspire Angelenos to shape the future of their neighborhoods. We don't just manage a system. We're here to help people build power from the ground up, strengthening grassroots democracy across Los Angeles. Our vision goes further. We envision a true co-governing system, one where decision-making is equitably shared between the people and policymakers. We aspire to bring equity, democracy, and real local power to every single community in this city. When we ask for resources tonight, understand that it is strictly to fulfill this mandate. We're asking for the tools necessary to ensure that this vision of shared governance isn't just an aspiration, but an operational reality. Our budget strategy isn't created in a vacuum. It's driven by three core values that guide every dollar we request. Transparency. Trust is critical to our work. That's why we're here tonight. We believe you deserve to know the full financial reality of this department, the opportunities, and the severe constraints. We're committed to communicating openly about the challenges ahead so we can solve them together. Collaboration. We cannot do this alone. Collaboration is essential to our relationship with all 99 neighborhood councils and the city family. This budget is designed to strengthen that partnership, providing the shared tools and infrastructure necessary for co-governance. Community. This is the heart of our work. We value building deep, authentic, and lasting roots in all 99 neighborhood council communities. Every request in this proposal is tested against one question. Does this help serve the diverse neighborhoods of Los Angeles, especially those who have been historically underserved? To bring these values to life and steer our department, we have a dedicated executive management team. Carmen Chang, our general manager, who you already heard from, is the one leading our department with a vision for inclusive governance. We have Vanessa Serrano, the managing director of field operations, who ensures our on-the-ground support reaches every corner of the city. We have Thomas Soong, the managing director of programs. He oversees the critical initiatives that empower our neighborhood councils. And again, myself, who is focused on the operational backbone that keeps us all running. Together, this team is responsible for taking our mission, vision, and guiding mantras and translating them into concrete plans. We work to ensure that every objective set by the city charter, the mayor, and the city council is met with a strategic, actionable response that serves you. To deliver on that mission, our department is organized into 4 key operational pillars. It's critical to note that 3 of these divisions, civic leadership, policy, government, and innovation, and awareness and engagement, collectively function as our designated field operations. While each has distinct specialties, staff across these 3 teams serve as your neighborhood empowerment advocates, or what we call NEAs. They are the ones providing direct neighborhood council support, attending your meetings, and acting as your primary liaison to City Hall. This integrated approach ensures that whether the issue is an election, a community impact statement, or board training, you have dedicated field support guiding you through it. So let's go down into those divisions. First is our Civic Leadership Division, which is led by Atsiri Camarena. This division is the anchor for our direct support services. Their mission is to provide efficient and responsive assistance to neighborhood council leaders through inclusive and accessible support and regulatory infrastructure. While NEAs are deployed across multiple divisions, this team is the primary hub for operational guidance and capacity building. They focus on the day-to-day health of your boards, helping you navigate bylaws, run effective meetings, and access the resources you need to serve your stakeholders. They are the ones ensuring that the regulatory infrastructure mentioned in our mission statement actually works for you on the ground. Next is our newly consolidated Policy, Government, and Innovation team, led by Director Gibson Nyambura. This year, we made a strategic decision to merge our former Policy and Government Relations division with our Innovation division. Why? Because in the 21st century, effective policy work relies entirely on innovative tools. This division bridges the gap between your boards and City Hall. They facilitate the community impact statement system and manage strategic partnerships to ensure your voice is heard by our decision makers. But policy is just words without the mechanism to deliver it. That's where the innovation component comes in. Whether it's the CIS portal that presents your positions on important issues, or the hybrid meeting technology that allows for broader participation, this division ensures that our governance tools modernize alongside our policy goals. By housing these functions together, we ensure that technology isn't just a gadget, it's a direct amplifier of your advocacy. Our Awareness and Engagement Division is led by Director Marilu Guevara. This team helps connect communities to the system. They manage the NC elections, outreach campaigns, and youth programs. Their goal is to ensure that the NC system reflects the diversity of Los Angeles. But their work goes far beyond event planning and outreach alone. This team serves as a communications engine for the entire department. They are responsible for managing our digital presence across all platforms and ensuring critical information reaches every Angelino. Crucially, they ensure that our communications are not only widespread, but also available in multiple languages. By breaking down communication barriers, they turn awareness into action, directly driving voter turnout and civic participation. And finally, my division, the Administrative Services Division. Our mission is to build the backbone of the department, like I said before. While we operate largely behind the scenes, our work provides the essential infrastructure that allows the entire system to function. We recognize the vast institutional knowledge of our city partners, but we also strive to innovate within this framework. We're organized into 5 specialized teams. The Services and Solutions team manages the customer service frontline, handles agenda postings, maintains rosters, and ensures our facilities and emergency preparedness plans are ready. Our Accounting and Compliance Services team are the guardians of fiscal integrity. They process payroll and accounts payable and ensure department expenditures meet city and GASB standards. Our Workforce and Resolution Support team handles our human resources, but they also serve a critical role for you. They manage the impartial investigation and mediation of complaints and conflicts, helping to resolve any issues professionally. The Technology and Empowerment Services team maintains the digital ecosystem, from the website and database to the platforms like the CIS portal that amplify your voice. And lastly, the Financial Operations and Access team manages the department's fiscal life cycle, developing the budget that we're actually discussing tonight, handling procurement as well, and managing Public Records Act requests to ensure transparency. I do want to take a moment to specifically spotlight the Financial Operations and Access team, who are the final group listed on the previous slide. Karen Moreno, Kevin Argueta, and Preston Colthurst Puryear are the driving force behind the development of the budget proposal that you're going to see tonight. Preparing a city budget in this fiscal climate is a monumental task. It requires analyzing thousands of data points, navigating complex city directives, and building the strategic justifications for every single dollar we spend. Their diligent work behind the scenes is what allows us to advocate for you effectively in front of the mayor and city council. So let's look at the data. This slide illustrates the specific fiscal challenges we're facing in the current year. On the left, you can see our budget history. While funding has fluctuated over the last 5 years, the demands on the system have only grown. The chart on the right tells the most critical story. When we account for both regular and resolution authority positions, our staffing peaked in the 2023-2024 fiscal year with 42 full-time positions. In the current 2025 to 26 budget, we're down to 31. That's a loss of 11 full-time positions in just 2 years. This year's adopted budget included several difficult reductions highlighted in the bullets here. We saw the elimination of 3 vacant positions. More painfully, we lost 4 filled positions, meaning we lost experienced staff. We faced a reduction of $266,000 in expense accounts, limiting our operational tools. We lost $20,000 in part-time funding, which supports our as-needed staff capabilities. And we are operating under a 9% salary savings rate. That's a mandatory hurdle that effectively freezes hiring. Once again, I wanted to make an important clarification on the NC funding that was mentioned previously. So the funding appropriation for neighborhood councils, so the money that you all use for your operations and neighborhood purpose grants, et cetera, is part of the Office of the City Clerk's budget under the Neighborhood Council Funding Program. EmpowerLA, our department, has no direct oversight or authority over the management or distribution of those funds. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. Our budget focuses strictly on the staff and infrastructure required to support you. Despite these cuts, our budget aligns strategically with Mayor Bass's 5 core priorities for this year. This is part of the budget instructions that we're required to fulfill when we submit our proposal. So our work is not separate from these goals. We find ways to align it. We align these priorities by ensuring that the neighborhood council system is robust enough to serve as a primary local partner for each initiative. For example, urgently housing Angelenos. We support this by training and supporting your boards in engaging productively on local housing issues, ensuring community voices are part of the solution rather than just a reaction to it. Keeping Angelenos safe. A strong NC system is vital for community safety. That's what we believe. We support the facilitation of dialogue between neighborhoods and public safety officials, turning safety from a top-down mandate into a community-led partnership. For bolstering crisis response, when a crisis hits, the neighborhood council system is an important line of communication. By strengthening your operational capacity, we ensure the city has a resilient, activated network ready to respond in each neighborhood. Fostering opportunity. Through our youth programs and civic leadership training, we're building pathways for the next generation of leaders, ensuring opportunities are accessible to all Angelenos. Make LA Shine and charter reform in particular. Under the priority Make LA Shine, we are preparing for the world stage with the 2028 Olympics, but we're also focused on shining a light on our own governance. This priority includes the critical work of the Charter Reform Commission. EmpowerLA is actively working to engage neighborhood councils in this historic process. We're ensuring that you have the platform and information needed to provide meaningful input on how our city is governed for decades to come. Let's talk about the challenges. We have to be transparent about the broader fiscal environment we're operating in, as it directly impacts our ability to support you. Citywide, the city is currently projecting over $263 million in overspending this year alone. The reserve fund has fallen below its 5% policy target. And unlike some previous years, the city does not anticipate a year-end revenue surplus to offset this overspending due to major external factors that you are all very much aware of, such as wildfires and federal funding uncertainties. These challenges have a direct impact on our department. Like I mentioned before, we've had personnel losses. We have lost 11 positions in the last 2 budget cycles alone. Specifically, we lost 4 vacant positions in 2024-25, and in the current fiscal year, we lost 3 vacant positions and 4 filled positions. Losing filled positions means we lost experienced staff members who were directly serving you. Our base operating budget as well, the funds we use for our day-to-day tools, expenses, everything else has been slashed from $229,000 down to just $128,000. This reduction is not abstract. It led directly to the loss of central funding for essential platforms like Zoom and Cornerstone, shifting costs and the administrative burdens onto your boards. What does this fiscal pressure mean for you? This slide outlines the direct operational impacts we're facing right now. Currently, each NEA, Neighborhood Empowerment Advocate, supports about 9 to 10 neighborhood councils. However, because of impending staffing cuts, by the end of this fiscal year, that ratio is projected to slide all the way up to 1 NEA for every 11 neighborhood councils. The impact is that one NEA for 11 NCs is an operationally unsustainable ratio. It means less face time for your board, slower response times to your questions, and a forced shift from proactive coaching and support to reactive, sometimes crisis management. There's a risk of employee burnout. Operating below operational needs creates an elevated risk of this burnout. When staff are stretched too thin, we risk losing even more institutional knowledge and experienced personnel, further compounding the service gaps that you experience. Mandatory reductions. Like every other city department, part of the mayor's instructions and the city administrative officer's instructions was a requirement for us to submit a reduction proposal. For EmpowerLA, that target was $154,872. Meeting this target has required difficult decisions that cut further into our mission-critical personnel and essential baseline operating funds. And once again, that's at 9% salary savings rate. It's perhaps the most challenging constraint in our current dynamic. This 9% rate is higher than any other small department in the city. This effectively freezes our ability to hire. Even if we have the budget authority or the position available, we can't fill that position because we have to hold those positions vacant in order to meet this salary savings target. This prevents us from backfilling critical roles when staff leave. So the core question is, how do we advocate then for the EmpowerLA department, for staff, and for the neighborhood council system needs under this framework? Well, the answer lies in the proposal that we're about to present, a strategy designed to fight for the resources necessary to stabilize and sustain this system. In response to these severe challenges, we have submitted a needs-based budget proposal designed to stabilize the system and restore essential services. So here's the breakdown of our request. We start at a baseline of $3.2 million, which maintains our current reduced operations. And then we have 3 new requests, asking for an additional $899,909 in critical investments. These are not nice to haves. They are essential fixes. We're asking for $364,000 for field staff support to restore those 4 project coordinator positions that I just mentioned in a couple slides ago. And this will hopefully stabilize our field operations. We're asking for $35,000 for Zoom licenses, once again, to centrally procure the virtual meeting licenses for all neighborhood councils instead of having it come out of your appropriation accounts. We're also asking for $500,000 for election outreach to fund a robust campaign for the 2027 neighborhood council elections. So this brings our total budget proposal to $4.15 million. This proposal is a strategic investment. It directly addresses the unsustainable NEA ratios, eliminates administrative burdens on your boards, and ensures we can drive civic engagement across the city. So let's look at each of these requests in detail. The first request is our most urgent, restoring funding for 4 project coordinator positions. It's not about expansion, it's about survival and stabilization. 2 of these positions are currently filled by dedicated, experienced staff members whose funding authority is set to expire. Without this restoration, these individuals will be laid off in June. Losing them would strip the department of vital institutional knowledge at a time when we can least afford it. The other 2 positions are also critical to plugging the holes in our field teams that have been created by attrition and budget cuts. The most important number here is the ratio. Funding these positions allows us to pull back from the brink of a 1-to-11 staff to neighborhood council ratio and stabilize at a more manageable 1-to-8. At 1-to-11, once again, our staff are forced into a permanent triage mode, putting out fires, managing challenges and issues. At 1-to-8, we can return to a proactive service model. NEAs can attend more meetings, provide consistent coaching and support, and help you navigate complex issues before they become major issues. The equity connection. This is fundamentally an equity issue. By stabilizing our caseloads, we can ensure that NEAs have the dedicated time to support high-need communities, those that may require more intensive coaching, language support, or stability assistance. It allows us to serve all 99 neighborhood councils fairly, not just those with the most resources. And the consequences of this in action? If this request is not funded, we lock in on the unsustainable 1-to-11 ratio. We accept higher burnout, slower response times, and increased compliance risks. We also lose the capacity to support mayoral priorities, including the grassroots mobilization needed for the 2028 Olympics. The second request is about administrative efficiency. We're requesting $35,000 to centrally procure Zoom licenses for all 99 neighborhood councils. So what's the problem? Well, the current system that most of you have witnessed this year is you pay for your Zoom licenses. And then you have to basically give us the money. We buy the licenses, and then you have to reimburse us. So it's extra work. It's not as clean cut. So once again, we're asking for this $35,000 so that we can cover the cost of the Zoom licenses, and then the money that you spent on that can go back to supporting your objectives, your goals, and your mission. The third request is about civic engagement. We're requesting a one-time investment of $500,000 for the 2027 Neighborhood Council Elections Outreach Campaign. This request is critical for expanding public awareness, removing barriers to participation, and increasing voter turnout across all 99 neighborhood councils. Why is this necessary? Our budget simply cannot sustain the essential outreach tools required to reach nearly 4 million residents. Currently, too many Angelenos remain unaware of the system or disconnected from opportunities to engage. This funding allows us to execute a comprehensive, data-driven campaign that includes $225,000 in contractual services to fund high-impact tactics requiring specialized vendors. This includes citywide digital and paid media advertising, professional creative design, and multilingual translation services to ensure our message is culturally responsive. $100,000 in as-needed salaries to deploy staff for high-touch, on-the-ground engagement. This team will execute grassroots strategies that digital ads cannot, such as door-to-door canvassing and direct outreach to local businesses and community organizations. We're also requesting $75,000 in office and administrative to provide the logistical backbone of the campaign, covering event logistics for candidate and voter workshops. We're asking $60,000 for printing and binding to produce physical materials like postcards and door hangers, which are critical for reaching residents with limited broadband access. And lastly, $40,000 in communication services to leverage partnerships with local media outlets and trusted community networks. We're using the CAO's MADE Equity Index to strategically prioritize resources. We have identified 46 neighborhood councils in high-need communities that have historically low participation rates. By targeting these areas with tailored, multilingual engagement, we aim to reverse participation gaps and ensure a representative system. Our goal is not just about holding an election. It's about strengthening the entire civic leadership pipeline. By connecting residents in underrepresented communities to public service opportunities, we build a mobilized community network required to support mayoral priorities from housing and safety to the 2028 Olympics and Paralympic Games. When we talk about the department's neighborhood council election guiding vision, we're essentially illustrating the strategic inputs that make our plan both meaningful and actionable. Key drivers for our plan are our mission and values. Our plan is rooted in our mission of inspiring Angelenos to be civically engaged and advocates for their community, and connecting them to the neighborhood council system to build people power from the ground up. Our core values of transparency, collaboration, and community are at the heart of how we will execute this plan. Equity and inclusion. Removing barriers to participation by making sure that our outreach is responsive to the needs of Angelenos, being intentional about how we can build engagement where people live, work, and study, all while providing resources and communication that are culturally and linguistically accessible and timely. Partnership and community engagement. Reaching out to non-traditional stakeholders and those that are not already civically engaged, working in coalition with neighborhood councils, community organizations, schools, faith-based organizations, worker alliances, and more to reach those communities that are often not asked to participate or have long histories of voting. Empowering partners with resources and training so that they can be our trusted outreach messengers. Communication and education. One major barrier to participation is the lack of knowledge of the existence of the neighborhood council system and how to get involved. Our efforts provide clear and accessible foundational information about the system and then introduce them to the election process. This includes ensuring messaging is reaching target communities using trusted channels of communication. And lastly, innovation strategies. We use innovation strategies to identify where efforts should be concentrated to amplify our impact. For example, engaging communities and stakeholders with high levels of underrepresentation and partnering with community groups to co-design outreach efforts. This includes striving to improve the outreach process from the last cycle and adapting to changes in technology and demography, whether it be adopting new digital tools or providing neighborhood council leaders with new resources we haven't explored before. The goal is how do we inspire civic leadership via candidacy and improve turnout? Lastly, refine, refine, refine. We evaluate what worked and what didn't. So where do we go from here? Budget's been submitted. Understanding the city's budget timeline is critical because it reveals the key windows for your advocacy. We are currently in the fall-winter phase. Right now, we have submitted our department proposal to the mayor. This period is often a time when the mayor's team and the city administrative officer, or CAO, review every line item, negotiate with departments, and make the tough decisions about what gets cut and what gets kept. On April 20th, the mayor, by charter, must release her proposed budget. This is the moment the public sees the city's priorities in writing. In May, the focus shifts to the city council. The Budget and Finance Committee will hold intensive public hearings. This is your most direct opportunity to weigh in on specific line items before the budget is finalized, not just for our department, but for any city department or any other line item in the city's budget. In June, the City Council votes to adopt the final budget, setting our course for the next fiscal year. Knowing these dates allows you to time your community impact statements and advocacy for maximum impact. Ultimately, your advocacy does matter. The neighborhood council system has a unique and potent power in the city's budget process, and we encourage you to use it. Here's how you can get involved right now. 1, agendize the budget. Place an item on your next board meeting agenda to discuss the city and department budget. This formalizes your board stance and informs your community about the resources at stake. File a community impact statement, or CIS. This is your official voice. Submit a CIS on the budget. The council file, when it opens, will be 26-0600. A CIS is more than a letter. It's a charter-granted right to advise the city council, and it is read by the decision makers. Partner with the budget advocates. Reach out to the neighborhood council budget advocates. They are your representatives who meet directly with the mayor and city departments. Their white paper is a powerful tool for collective advocacy. Stay informed with data. Don't just rely on summaries. Use the resources listed here. The CAO's website for detailed budget documents and financial reports, and the Controller's Data Portal for transparent real-time data on city spending and revenues. The department advocates for you inside the halls of City Hall every day, but your voices from the outside, united and informed, are equally, if not more, powerful. So I want to say thank you for your leadership and for taking the time to understand the operational realities of our department. We're committed to transparency and to fighting for the resources this system deserves. And I'm happy to answer questions now. Stop sharing. So I'm going to go through the list of questions that have been submitted prior to this meeting. I'm hoping that some of these have already been answered by the presentation I just gave. I will still read them out loud regardless, and then respond either that it was just presented or just reiterate a couple of points. So I'll start with this first question. Given the challenging financial position the city and all departments will be in fiscal year 2026 to 27, how is EmpowerLA looking for enhancements and innovations through the new budget request programs, while also balancing the reality of potential cuts and reductions that may come when the mayor releases her budget? So again, I think that was kind of covered in the presentation. There is this balance that we have to do where we are required to comply with the specific instructions that are provided in the preparation of our budget proposal, things such as the reduction proposal that we had to include, um, you know, keeping in mind that 9% salary savings rate. Other instructions included making sure that any request that we made was offset by funds that we can cut from our existing budget. At the same time, because we're not able to meet some of those requirements, we don't have revenue, like Jay mentioned at the start of our start of this session. Um, we still feel it's important to advocate for the needs of the department and the neighborhood council system. So we always do our best to present the priorities as we see them for the upcoming year or two. Next question is there a council file for the fiscal year proposed budget? Can can CIP funds be amended to allow for additional services like potholes, sidewalk repair, uh, other than beautification? So I did mention the council file. It's not open yet. It won't open until the budget process gets to the stage where the Budget and Finance Committee will open up hearings for their review. The council file will be 26-0600, but you won't be able to find it just yet because we're not at that stage. Regarding the CIP funds, again, the disclaimer that was said at the top of this meeting, neighborhood empowerment is not the administrator, manager, or nor do we house the budget for the neighborhood councils for their allotments. That's under the office of the city clerk. So I would recommend speaking with them about best practices guidelines on all of that. The next comment just says annual limit and transfer from other councils. Not sure I understand what that is. Maybe that's their priorities. Um, let's move on. How much will EmpowerLA fund versus how much will get pushed to the neighborhood councils, especially considering our drastic funding cuts? For example, why not have EmpowerLA pay for Zoom licenses and Canva? Excellent question. So again, we did just address that in the presentation. We did ask for Zoom licenses to be covered. We had to be very careful about what we asked for, given the specific requirements we had to meet for our budget proposal requests. So we prioritized the Zoom license and made that request. Anything not covered by that, unfortunately, that the neighborhood councils would like to continue to use at this point are still going to be something that you would have to pay out of your appropriation accounts. Like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the department's operating budget has been cut significantly in the last year or two. We are down to bare bones budgets, barely able to cover our most baseline operational costs. We used to cover the Zoom licenses. We used to cover the Canva licenses for NCs. It was our pleasure to do so. However, because we were asked to make these cuts, we had to find places to do that, and we do not have that funding anymore. The next question. How can Dunn efficiently continue to support the NC system as the budget and staffing diminishes? What is the current ratio of NEAs to NCs? What is the ideal ratio? Excellent question. I hope it was at least partially addressed in our presentation. Current ratio stands at 1 NEA to about 9 or 10 neighborhood councils. That's very tough. By the end of this fiscal year, like I mentioned, 2 positions that have technically been cut, but those people are still with us through the end of this fiscal year. That will push that ratio to 1 NEA for every 11 neighborhood councils. That is a huge difference, and that does affect how the department responds and supports the neighborhood councils. It will be absolutely difficult, tough, near impossible to have NEAs present at every single neighborhood council meeting. And it'll turn the way that we respond to just looking for places that need the most support and being as responsive as we can with the staff that we have. The last question on that one was, what is the ideal ratio? We've advocated for years and years on end. The ideal that we see is one NEA for every 5 neighborhood councils, and we know that we're a far cry from that. Even if we were to get the 4 positions that we're requesting in this proposal, that would only put us at about 1 to 8, but it's still more manageable, and it's a stabilization of where we are right now, which is in a pretty critical state. The next question or comment says amount budgeted for translation fund, or is this a city clerk budget? So they kind of answered that. A contribution to the Congress of Neighborhoods. So first, the amount budgeted for the translation fund is under the city clerk's budget. I would refer you to the office of the city clerk for information about that. I'm not sure off the top of my head if they're going to continue it at the amount. I believe it used to be $60,000. Don't know if that's going to continue. And then the second part is the contribution to the Congress of Neighborhoods. Now, for those of you that have been with us for several years, know that in prior budget fiscal cycles, we did have $10,000 in our department budget that was set aside to support the Congress of Neighborhoods, as well as budget advocacy and the budget advocates. Unfortunately, through the years, as we were asked to make difficult decisions about cuts, we lost that funding. Every year, we do request it, but it doesn't always make it to the final proposal as part of the discussions. We still continue to support and advocate for those funds as part of our contribution to those very important events and activities. Next comment or question is allocation of funds for affordable housing and home ownership assistance for working families. Working families that do not qualify for low income apartments or government subsidies still need help with the rising costs of housing in Los Angeles and Los Angeles County. So, this question or comment is outside of the purview of our department's budget. We don't have any direct authority or impact over that. But again, I would invite the commenter to be engaged with the budget process, especially at the Budget and Finance Committee level, to advocate for those things that they feel are important. Next comment is every 3rd or 5th year should be a maintenance budget. Okay, I'll just take that as a comment. I don't know what the response would be for that. Next comment is increase MPG allocations, city funding for internet access for remote Zoom access to all NC meetings. So again, that was addressed in the presentation. The Zoom licenses is part of our budget proposal. Regarding the MPG allocations, again, that falls under the office of the city clerk. Next comment just says Cornerstone and staffing. We haven't talked about Cornerstone too much, but yes, Cornerstone is another fiscal challenge that we're facing. We don't have the money to renew the Cornerstone licenses at the end of this fiscal year. So as of now, if the Cornerstone portal platform were to continue, it would have to be either NCs pay for the licenses for their board members out of their own appropriation funds, or we seek to find a different free, affordable platform to manage the training and compliance components, and that is a big issue. Next topic, a comment is considering the city's massive budget deficit and LAX's $2 billion budget for perpetual upgrades that never improve the airport, why isn't the city requiring LAX to help fund the city budget? Why isn't the city council required to balance the budget annually? And why has the city not yet addressed runaway juries and asked the city attorney, the California legislature to cap lawsuit awards so that plaintiffs are not receiving $100 million awards that far outweigh any realistic damages incurred by the plaintiffs. Again, not inside of the purview or my expertise to comment on that particular comment. But I would encourage this person to follow the budget process and submit their comments to the city council and the budget and finance committee. All right, next comment. How will you address the NC budget shortfall? How can NCs make better use of the money for their communities? Again, city clerk funding program, neighborhood council funding program has the administrative management over that. But how can NCs make better use of the money for their communities? I will say that neighborhood empowerment advocates, the NEAs that I've been talking about this whole evening, are very much a part of that dynamic. So engaging with your NEA and engaging with the NC funding program team is a great way to make sure that you are making the most use of your funding allocations. Next question, is done submitting a request in the budget for a mediator / arbitrator to assist with NC dispute resolution? How many funds are allocated for outreach and engagement? And is there a plan to partner with NCs for localized execution of outreach and events? Okay, so the first part regarding the mediator arbitrator for NC dispute resolution, excellent question. We actually had a position that we were waiting to fill to do just that. It was a senior management analyst position in our department. Due to many of the things that I discussed this evening, such as the 9% salary savings rate, and just an overall difficulty in filling a pretty, demanding position, a challenging position that requires a very specific set of expertise, we were unable to fill that position, and that was one of the positions that was cut, not this year, but in the prior year. That set us back for being able to address issues of dispute resolution. So that is something that we're going to continue to advocate for. We still continue to have conversations with the mayor's office and with our other city partners about how to best to resolve NC disputes in a way that can resolve them quickly before they escalate and turn into something worse. The second part of that was how many funds are allocated for outreach and engagement, and is there a plan to partner with NCs for localized execution of outreach and events? I don't think we have our director of awareness and engagement with us tonight, but I hope I covered some of that in the $500,000 request we made for the 2027 elections, which includes general outreach as well and engagement. So I would refer you to that. Next question is, how much of a cut are you expecting? Do you expect to lose staff? So again, we started a baseline of about $3 million. Part of our budget proposal does include that reduction proposal of $154,000. That is not a guaranteed, it's not a given that they're going to cut that from us. It's just part of the proposal process. It's an exercise that we show where those cuts would come from if they were made. So we're waiting to see how the mayor and the CAO's office review that information and provide feedback on that. Do we expect to lose staff? We sure hope not, because obviously the impact of having the reduction of 11 staff members over the last 2 years has already, really hurt our operations. Loss of any additional staff would be, just continue to exacerbate that situation. So we're hoping that we won't lose any additional staff, but it's too early to know for sure. And again, a reminder that a lot of these impacts that occur throughout the fiscal year are outside even of the city's control. They could be, things that are happening at the national level, or just emergency response situations and things like that. Even though our department is not directly involved in many of those things, there is an indirect impact, and it does, come down to our level at some point where we have to make some decisions to kind of accommodate the overall financial picture of the city. Next question is, what are the questions or changes EmpowerLA will be sending to the Charter Commission to improve our budget? Would Dunn advocate so neighborhood councils could fundraise or receive sponsorship? Um, hmm. Carmen, are you available to maybe chime in on that one? I don't want to misspeak on that.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. So if folks joined a few weeks back, there was a town hall with neighborhood councils on the Charter Commission. So we did discuss this then. We didn't talk much about the budget itself. The department did present back in, I believe it was September, on changes to Section 900 of the charter on neighborhood council systems. But we did say that we will continue to advocate, however, in which way, to ensure that neighborhood councils. Again, I know we said this a few times. It's not within our area purview regarding neighborhood council budget, but we do continuously talk about it, about the need, that reduction. It used to be $50,000, then it was reduced to $32,000, and now it's been reduced to $25,000. So we do continue to talk about it, to whether it's council offices or the mayor's office. In terms of fundraising and sponsorships, my understanding is in the past, that has been that was done in terms of receiving donations. That is something that we are looking into. I mean, I think since I've been with the department, I've gotten this question from many neighborhood council board members. We are trying to find creative solutions. I've had some conversations, whether it was our deputy mayor or folks from the mayor's office. So we'll just continue to mention the fact that 25,000 really isn't quite enough at all, to really cover the basis of selecting venues, right, for neighborhood council meetings, the Zoom licenses, the Canva licenses, the community events. And we all know that you do so much, and it's not lost on us. So we do ask for that, in addition to that 10K for Congress and neighborhoods, or the 10K for the budget advocates for budget day.
Thank you, Carmen. Okay, let's go to the next question. Can we expect our funding to be restored at some point so we can give more neighborhood purpose grants? Again, I think I've kind of answered this. It has to do with the Office of the City Clerk and the Neighborhood Council Funding Program, and your advocacy as well during the budget process to make sure that you voice your priorities to the city on the whole, as they are the decision makers on that. Unfortunately, I can't predict whether the funding would be restored or not. Next question is, what is the economic impact of the city's budget cuts? Again, I think that one might be a little bit outside of the scope of this department or my expertise. I can't feign to speak on behalf of the entire city regarding the economic impacts. I can encourage you to listen in on the Budget and Finance Committee. The city administrative officer gives financial status reports about the state of the city, and they do go into things like the economic impact of just everything that's going on with the city and the city's finances. Next question is, are there going to be more budget cuts? Again, it's not something that I am privy to or aware of. I know that, again, the reduction proposal was part of our proposal requirements, and that, again, external factors, just as evidenced by the prior years, going all the way back actually to 2020 and the pandemic, things like that can greatly impact the city's finances and lead to budget cuts. The next comment is just says health issues and storm drains. So I believe that's maybe the priorities of this that this person submitted. Um, Next question is how to organize the budget to meet unexpected situations, how to educate the newcomers, including youth from NC from NCs. Um, okay, so I think how to organize the budget to meet unexpected situations. I'm going to interpret that as how does the department organize itself to meet these unexpected situations? And I'll just say that the executive management team led by Carmen um, is constantly looking at this, is constantly, being made aware of, what's on the horizon in terms of the financial picture of things, as well as the operational aspects of our department and our staffing levels. We look at vacancies, we look at capacity, we look at training and exposure to different priorities and work going on. So we usually have at least two or three different plans in place just in case, we experience in turnover or a budget cut or a shortfall or something like that comes along. We have discussions about it and plan ahead for that. How to educate newcomers, including youth from NCs. Sign up for many of our events. We do our best to even continue with the youth conference and women's leadership events and other types of events to engage not just neighborhood councils, the board members, but stakeholders and everyone else about that process and see how they can get more involved in kind of advocacy and civic engagement. Next question is, will the NC budget be increased next fiscal year since it will be an election year? I think that's been asked and answered. The answer, I guess, once again is I don't know. Will there be an increase in funding is the next question. Same thing. Next question is also NC budgets increased. I think that's been asked and answered. Next comment is, I would like to know if animal services will be given a respectable budget to be able to do a proper job to support foster and adoption opportunities and to provide a healthy and safe living environment for all the animals that are basically given a death sentence when they arrive at an LA shelter and not have the money diverted for things like LAPD settlements. Again, I will say that that is outside of the purview of my expertise to be able to speak on, but I encourage this person to submit their comments to the Budget and Finance Committee when they review the budget on the whole. For the upcoming fiscal year, will EmpowerLA commit to a specific protected line item for youth engagement, such as annual youth conference? And what minimum funding level do you believe is necessary to prevent further shrinkage of meaningful youth opportunities in the neighborhood council system? So this is an interesting question. I think we have, and we continue to advocate for youth engagement and events directed towards youth engagement activities. This year, unfortunately, we did not get funding for that. And it's not part of our budget proposal, but at the same time, our director of awareness and engagement is actively involved in looking for ways to engage youth, create maybe even virtual events where youth opportunities are kind of presented and made available. Oh, sorry, I just saw a comment that says Marty Lou is in attendance. Director of Awareness and Engagement, Marty Lou, if you would like to comment on that, on either the youth engagement or the outreach question that came earlier, please feel free to jump in. And if you're not available, no worries. I hopefully answered it as well as I could. All right, next comment. Let's see. Personnel and Cornerstone is the next comment. I think we've addressed those. Personnel, meaning I'm assuming staffing for the department is a significant challenge, as is Cornerstone. Next question is Dunn going to maintain rollover process from this year to next? What monies are requested for elections? Okay, so the first part again, the rollover process, if it's available or not, is best answered by the Office of the City Clerk and the Neighborhood Council Funding Program. I honestly don't know the answer to that one. And then the second question is what monies are requested for elections? Like I mentioned, one of our three proposals is $500,000 to do meaningful election outreach. Next question is what concrete steps can neighborhood councils take to increase NC budgets beyond our budget advocates? Uh, Maybe that's a question for the budget advocates. Would Jay or Glenn like to? I'm not sure if I understand what concrete steps can neighborhood councils take to increase NC budgets beyond our budget advocates? Well, I guess.
So I can chime in on there for you.
All right.
So, the budget advocates do everything we can to lobby, to ask the city to increase our budgets, to not cut certain departments, so that we get all of our services. Every neighborhood council should file a CIS, okay, on the budget. And that would include asking, the city council, when it's all said and done, everybody, the city council decides what Dunn gets. The city council decides what city clerk gets to give to us. So again, a CIS is a perfect way. Meet with your city council people. Okay, align with budget advocates. The stronger we are, the more voices we have, the more they're going to listen. Because the one thing I will say is that's very important right now. This is an election year. This is the year the mayor wants to get elected. This is the year the city controller wants to get elected. This is the year the city attorney wants to get elected. This is the year all the odd number city council districts, they want to get reelected. They love their jobs. So what I would say to everybody is don't be afraid, to lobby your city council person. Don't be afraid to write a CIS, get your neighborhood council to write a CIS, write personally into the mayor and to your city council people, and give good thought to the use of that money. This is what I would encourage everybody, because the truth of the matter is, we do great work throughout the community, but we have very little visibility. I would say maybe 0.5% of the city of LA stakeholders know about neighborhood councils. And that's because we're not doing a very good job, we as neighborhood councils, in getting out there and letting people know who we are, what we do, how to connect, and how we can help them in the community. So it's going to be really important to show the city the best use of our money. So they believe we're not just piggy banks, but we're actually engaging and empowering and getting more people involved in the city system. Glenn?
I'm just going to add to that there's actually three levels. The mayor. So any of you who have Mayor Bass on your speed dial or, see her at church or whatever, get her ear. The budget advocates met with her 2 months after she took office, and we dealt with this issue very specifically. Her eyes were open. She wrote notes. She was not aware that we had been cut down from $50,000 almost 20 years prior, and we thought that was a good sign. Unfortunately, this last year we were cut down to 25,000. So we need help in getting to the mayor. It's the first step is what the mayor proposes. Then, as indicated earlier, it's the Budget and Finance Committee. So if you're a council member like Katie Yaroslavsky, Bob Bloomfield, the other 5 members of the Budget and Finance Committee, if you're on first name basis with them, lobby them. And the challenge is when it moves from the mayor to the budget and finance, they then have to find where's the money going to come from. And frankly, they've kind of already taken all the reserves that are probably going to be able to take. But they've got to find money to then put money in. So the best thing is to get the mayor to put it in there because they have figured that out from a citywide basis and they don't have to do it on an ad hoc basis. By the time it gets to the full city council, 99.9% of the budget, it's a done deal. They may make some minor amendments, but it's the first two, the mayor and the budget and finance committee, where you really have a chance to make a difference if a difference can be made. And some changes have been made.
Thank you both very much for that. I'll continue with the second part of that question. It says, is the mayor's office or the council member offices planning to hold budget town halls with the NCs and broader community? Again, I can't speak for them. I would say follow Jay and Glenn's advice to connect with them and find out more and request more for your neighborhood councils and for your communities.
Can I add, Armando, let me add to that. I mean, I would also just encourage everyone here to, just echoing Jay's and Glenn's points, just, if you can reach out to them and tell them you want, to host town halls, budget town halls. I think it's important for them to hear that. I know we do it on our end when we have conversations and meetings with council offices. I do think that there are some council members that are pretty receptive. So that's a great question. And, I would say, please, if you have the capacity to do so, please reach out to them as well.
All right. Thank you, Carmen. Next question is, why is it too much paperwork to request a budget for an event? I believe that's a question about the neighborhood council funds and the funding program process. So I would defer to them on that. Next question, how can Dunn support the neighborhood council system with a dwindling budget and staff reductions? I hope I've been answering that well. It's tough. It's getting tougher. And it's going to continue to get tougher unless we can stabilize by getting some of these positions back and being in a position to offer support and enhance the activities of the neighborhood councils instead of just kind of like, doing our best to triage situations where things are more challenging. Next question, when will NCs get back to their previous amount of funding? Will Dunn cover costs like Zoom and Canva licenses if NCs reduced budgets remain? I think that's been answered, so I'll move on. Can neighborhood councils have more money? Also been answered. Why is the budget for NCs cut for just a small drop of $750,000 and handicapped NCs? How will budget cuts continue to impact EmpowerLA and NCs? I think that one has also been answered. Next question, what's going on with rec and parks? Our facilities are breaking down and no timeline to repair or bring up to code. Our Dunn rep isn't working for us. We've seen them once in 6 months. Need you to supervise to ensure we get service and our tax dollars worth. Okay, so on the rec and parks, again, this department does not have authority or support over that, so I can't really answer that part. In regards to the Dunn rep, which is a neighborhood empowerment advocate, don't know specifically who that would be, but again, we are talking about the challenges of a diminishing number of staff members available to support the neighborhood council system on the whole. And that's the challenge that we do face. Just like any other department, any other business or office, there are top of the staff that we do have, sometimes we have absences, sometimes we have illnesses, sometimes we have vacations. And so we are constantly managing and doing our best to make sure that support is being offered evenly. But if you feel like there is support missing, I would encourage you to either, not reach out to the NEA in this case, but maybe reach out to the director or the department in the whole, and we can see what we can do to support that.
Armando,
mhm.
can I chime in just for a second?
Of course.
So, I'm hearing people talk about, can we get more money from the city clerk, and Parks and Recs is falling apart, and it's hard to get people to show up from Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. This is the whole point that budget advocates have continued to hammer, and that's the lack of services that's created by the mismanagement of the city's overall funds. People are being stretched to the max. An NEA having 11 neighborhood councils is impossible to cover all 99 councils on a monthly basis. LAPD could take 2 hours for a non-emergency call, 45 minutes for 911 to answer, longer for 411 to answer. Parks and Rec is falling apart. The parks are looking horrible. And we could go on about potholes, street lights, sidewalks. It's a crumbling city that we need to get back to our core services and basics. And to me, the department's big responsibility is servicing the customer. We're the customer, and the department is servicing us, the customer. And the city's not allowing that to happen in a proper manner because they're not funding enough people in the department to be able to have them do the job. So I would encourage everybody that's on this call to remember this is a bigger picture issue. Dunn's budget is one piece of 43 departments or whatever the numbers are, you know, and they're all getting squeezed. But this is our baby. Dunn is our baby. This is who we deal with all the time. And we need those services. So continue to hammer on your city council people and on the mayor about how important it is that they fully fund the department so that they can fully service us on the ground.
Thanks, Jay. Okay, let's see. So again, yeah, so there's another question about Department of Building and Safety here as well. And again, I would say we're not, I'm not the one to be able to answer that appropriately. Let's see. I'm trying to find any questions that haven't been, any topics or, let's see. Um, Okay, so this question is, how much is the EmpowerLA 26-27 budget request? Lower or higher than this year's budget? What EmpowerLA shifts in organization and operations are occurring within the 26-27 budget request? So again, the 26-27 proposal is higher. Well, it's a proposal. It's not the money that we're getting yet. So, but we are asking for an increase of $899,000 from the current year because one, it's an election year, neighborhood council election year, so that always includes a request for funding to do that in critical election outreach. And then we are asking for the restoration of those 4 positions on top of $35,000 for the Zoom licenses. I guess that answers the second part in terms of shifts in organization and operation. We're not really going to make any major changes in terms of on the proposal other than hopefully restoring those 4 positions that we have lost this year. Let's see. Let's see effective. Oh, here's one. What are the key metrics that EmpowerLA proposes to use to measure public participation in the NC system? That's a good one. I think that those and I will say that our budget proposal will be made available on our website. I believe we'll have it up by tomorrow. And we'll send out the link in newsletters, etc. But you should be able to see it on our homepage. In the budget proposal, you'll see our department's metrics, and as part of those metrics includes metrics that measure participation in the NC system, which would be things like event participation, social media, advertisements, newsletter engagement. I'm trying to think of what else. Obviously, voter engagement, voter registration, candidate registration. Um, um, those are the kinds of things. I'm sure I'm missing some things, but we can expand on that maybe in the written response to this one. Let's see. Major. Okay, so this question says the mayor has requested that all departments cut their budget by 5%. How will this affect neighborhood councils given that funds allocated to NCs have already been cut from 50,000 down to 32,000, which barely covers operation costs, outreach and a handful of MPGs. Well, like, how will this affect neighborhood councils? I guess is more a question for each neighborhood council than I don't deign to speak on your behalf on that one. But I think the impact is different depending on which neighborhood council and what specific priorities and objectives they have for that year. There's another question about the charter reform, being able to fundraise or get sponsorships, and I believe Carmen already provided a response for that. What type of customer service training have funding representatives taken? How do you determine what can be used to fund items from the admin packet that was voted on? Not sure what admin packet they're talking about. This is about the funding representatives, which again is under the city clerk. But might as well plug that our own department's customer service team, as well as the vast majority, if not all of the staff, do take extensive customer service training to make sure that we are doing our best and being as responsive as we can be, given our capacity and challenges. Okay, I think that's pretty much the majority of the pre-submitted responses. We do have a few minutes, so I don't know if I haven't been looking at the Q&A, so it would be great if somebody could maybe pull up a couple of the questions that we would like to have answered live.
I think John and Vincent have been.
Armando,
Yes.
this is John Darnell. I'm a neighborhood empowerment advocate. So there's one question is, can you provide details on why there's a $500,000 request for NC election outreach?
Yes, the copy is basically in the budget proposal. You'll see a fully fleshed out proposal for the $500,000, including the breakdown of how those funds would be used, the justification for those funds, performance metrics that would be tied to outcomes and impacts of the use of those funds. So again, we're working to have the budget proposal up on our website by tomorrow. And then I invite everybody here to take a look at it. Again, I rambled on for a little, almost 30 minutes, but even that is not enough to cover all of the details that are in that proposal. So I invite everyone here to review that.
So I have another question. Are there any grants that Dunn has or has had in the past and any funds left over possibly?
We are currently working with LA 2050. They gave us a grant $50,000 to do some civic engagement, public engagement events. But the thing with those grants is that they very much are for those specific activities. So we have to be, obviously, we need to report on the use of those monies back to LA 2050. We are open and looking towards other grant opportunities that might help us supplement our operations in the future.
So I have another question for you. Is I think it would be helpful for Armando to describe what the salary savings rate is. He discussed it, but some people may not know what it means.
Oh, it is. It's a okay. So the salary savings rate, ours being 9%, is basically a cut right off the top of our budget before we even get our money for the fiscal year. They cut our salaries account by that percentage. And what it is it's an anticipation of what the turnover might be for the department in that year. So they cut it off the top thinking that they will have vacancies throughout the year. Now, this 9% rate was implemented, I don't know, must have been 6, 7 years ago, um, during a very different time financially. And for many years, we did have a lot of vacancies. So we were always able to move things around and still mostly meet that goal. But in this last several years, despite our advocacy every year to correct that rate to reflect what that rate is across other city departments of our size. Usually you'll see departments of our size, we're a department of about 31 right now. We'll have a salary savings rate of about 1 to maybe 3 or 5%, usually 5% being on the high end. So in our prior budget year proposals, we've asked for that correction to be made, but have yet to have that applied to our department. So as of now, it still stands as a significant challenge. Whatever our budget is at the start of next fiscal year, whatever we get approved, any of those three requests or none at all, or if they reduce the 154,000 that I mentioned in our reduction proposal, they are also going to cut 9% of our salary. So if we're fully staffed at the start of the next fiscal year, 26-27, we're already short by that 9%. So that's a big challenge, a huge challenge.
So here's another Armando.
Another Armando. I think we have time for maybe two more questions because it's 7:57.
Okay.
Do you have an amount in the dumb budget for Congress and Budget Day? You said 10,000 each. Can that at least be maintained? I recall Dunn dropped to bare bones staffing. We should be able to weather this along.
Yes, so I believe I answered that earlier, to say that it was in our budget in prior fiscal years, but in more recent years, unfortunately, as we were asked to make difficult cuts to our expense accounts to meet fiscal restraint exercises and other cuts throughout the years, we did lose that funding for the 10,000 for Congress, 10,000 for budget advocacy and budget day, budget advocates. And actually, I think no, maybe I'm not remembering correctly. But we continue, like Carmen mentioned, we continue to talk about the importance of our department contributing and supporting those important events. So, and we'll continue to do so.
All right, I think we have time maybe for one more. You mentioned something about Cornerstone. Does this mean NCs will have to contribute to Cornerstone costs? And also, can you just talk about the Cornerstone and the possibility of restoring it in the next fiscal year?
Okay, so the cost for Cornerstone licenses for the NC system is $20,000 every year. It's basically $10 per board member per year. We have about 2,000 licenses. Sorry, my math is not as great at 8 p.m. at night. We have 2,000 licenses that we set aside, and we have to have that little kind of buffer because there's turnover and transition, and we need to make sure that we're keeping records for all board members, et cetera. We don't have that money for this year. Cornerstone expires, I believe, at the end of this fiscal year. Again, not off the top of my head, but either April or May of this year. Our department is looking at options of how to continue training, especially the mandatory trainings and compliance with those trainings and tracking all of that, using whatever resources we have now, which is basically Google and Sheets and Google Forms and whatever we can come across, that doesn't have an expense tied to it. One thing I haven't mentioned, by the way, that salary savings rate is affecting us this year. If you've been listening to the Budget and Finance Committee meetings, we submitted a report that we are $500,000 short in our department's funds for this fiscal year alone. Why? That salary savings rate. We had no vacancies at the start of this fiscal year, but we still have that 9% cut from our salaries. So those are the challenges we're facing. So we're looking at solutions for Cornerstone that are free to no cost. An option that is being floated, although we haven't fully decided yet, is to offer the neighborhood councils, if they would like to pay for their own licenses for their boards. It's $10 per person per year for each board. I understand that that's a challenge, especially given the cuts to the neighborhood council budgets on their own. So at this time, there is not a solid decision on that.
All right, I think it's time. It's 8:01. Thank you everyone for coming. Glenn, I would like to pass it back to you or Jay.
Yeah, I'll just I put it in chat, but I just want to bring everyone's attention. The mayor's office has posted the budget request from each of the departments on their budget website, and I put the link into chat. So you can not only find for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, you can find it for all the 40 plus city departments for this upcoming year. I mean, up next fiscal year. So it's all in one place. And then lastly, for those of you who want to get more information on the budget advocates, as I mentioned at the beginning, the recording for this session will be posted on our website, which is budgetadvocates.org. And you can get in touch with us. Hopefully your neighborhood council has appointed its 2 budget representatives that we ask each of the 99 neighborhood councils to appoint, so that we have a pool of 198 folks who then help us in our work, because we're only 36 at max, and we need more people to do all the things that you've heard about here today. And of course, that expands out to all your neighborhood councils. We're here to amplify the voices of individual neighborhood councils. We're working in partnership with the councils. Some neighborhood councils submit their recommendations to us of the things that are important to them, and then we take that and try to include that in our work. So keep in touch with us. We'll keep in touch with you, and thanks for attending, and I'll turn it over to Jay. You're muted, Jay.
That's how most people like me. If you're in a region where we have a vacancy, please, I implore you, talk to your president of your council, get somebody appointed to be a budget rep, and then we'll nominate them to come on to be a budget advocate. I think it's really important that we have full participation from all regions. And on that note, I just want to thank all of the Dunn staff, or the EmpowerLA staff, for being here tonight and spending their evening with us and giving the answers that we can expect to hear. Everybody stay tuned. The budget process has just started, and I hate to sound like the bad guy, but it's probably not going to get much better. So we need to stay vigilant. We need to stay on top of it. And the department's doing, a great job with what they have. And hopefully we'll be able to help them do a better job for us by helping them get the funds they need to at least maintain, if not increase some help for us. So thank you to Carmen, Armando, Vincent, John, Thomas, everybody who was on tonight. Appreciate all of you. And
Thanks,
have a good
everyone.
night.
Appreciate the time.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Stay tuned.